All right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. It's a very different podcast intro because it's a very different podcast in general. This is a trigger warning because we're going to talk a lot in this podcast about drugs, alcohol, all that kind of stuff, rehab. The reason is that my guest, Amanda Lyndon-James, she's a qualified horticulturalist. She's been running gardening businesses for many years, but she's also the wife of Peter Lyndon-James, who is one of the most well-known, maybe even infamous people in the drug and alcohol rehabilitation scene. The reason is that he himself was a criminal, drug addict, dealer, all sorts of stuff for many years, turned his life around, and then for the last 10, 15 years has been helping other people turn their life around through a rehab called Shalom House. And Amanda, obviously being the wife, was involved in all of it, from the lows to the good points, the great side of the rehab. So that's what the conversation is a lot about. This is a podcast that's typically about lawn and garden, so I wanted to give that warning first. If you're jumping in hoping that this is going to be about expert advice, it's probably not the episode for you. But if you are interested in that side, this is going to be the episode for you. Two more things I want to say. One is Amanda was a bit nervous at the start of this, understandably. So the first 10-15 minutes might feel like it's taken a little bit to get warmed up, which I totally understand, but I think once she does get warmed up, it's an epic episode. And the final thing is, I just want to say that through my entire career in the industry, everybody has got some sort of struggle in this industry that I know about. I know it's more than just this industry itself, but there's a lot of people out there who are doing really well on the surface, maybe not under the surface. And so if that's you, it doesn't have to be a drug or alcohol issue. I guess this conversation is for you, because this is going to be very honest. And we're going to talk about struggles. We're going to talk about all this sort of stuff. I hope it's helpful. No ads in this podcast. Didn't think it was appropriate. So listen and enjoy. All right, welcome. Today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. I'm going to pretend like it didn't take me 25 minutes just to set up a camera. I'm still not happy with the angle. But we've got Amanda here. Amanda Lyndon-James. And anyways, other than the extreme heat, it's 36 degrees right now, 3:48 in the afternoon. Welcome to Perth. What else has been going on? I'll give you an intro. I'll put some sort of trigger warning in front of this, because you're a normal person, but you haven't had necessarily the life that everyone would expect when they meet nice, friendly Amanda, and you're standing there to quote their strata complex or their hotel, restaurant, all that sort of stuff. Do some great work, people love it, but behind the scenes is a lot more. And I told you this before I got you right, is that I think your kind of story is a lot more common than what we would like to admit. And you know that because of all the people you've helped in your life. But I also know that from employees I've had, people I've talked to in the industry, all that sort of stuff, that everyone thinks, oh, it's nice and rosy and we're doing fine. Mm-hmm. And then on the surface, there's something else going on. So this is not your normal episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast, which is why, to be fair, the camera angle doesn't matter so much. And the fact that I'm sweaty because I've been moving cameras and outside of the loving embrace of my nice fans here.
That's a great setup.
On the couch. Why don't you tell us a shorthand story, because you've been gardening for a long time.
Yep.
You had a business for a long time. You had a bunch of employees. You eventually sold that.
Yep.
Went into more not-for-profit work, and now you're back.
Yep.
But is there any more of that story that's worth introducing or using as an introduction for you?
No, not really. Yeah, I just grew up on a farm, so horticulture was kind of always in my blood. Yeah, pretty much as soon as I left school, did horticulture. Yeah, had a few years out, when you have kids and things like that, then our life went completely off track, but then we went back on track. So yeah, 6 years ago, had a business, sold that, went into some office work, realized that although I don't regret a minute of doing that, because I feel like that's kind of helped me come back again. So yeah, then it's just the opportunity arose to start a business again. And it's kind of like, do I do that or do I keep going the way I was? And so, yeah, took the plunge and started a new business.
And what are the vanity numbers? Because back in the day, so you've only been back into for about 9 months, 10 months, right?
Yeah, June. Yeah.
So where you are right now is probably not a true reflection of where you will be.
Yeah.
But when you was at the height and you were at your most busiest, what was your business like previously?
So basically 3 crews, 2 to 3 people in each crew. And so mine was a lot of the overseeing all of that. But just being on the ground as when I could, but at the same time I had really good crew leaders. So in the mornings you're delegating everything, and then they're off, and then basically you're just going around just checking on everything. And so that was great. So
and you were doing a lot of stuff all around Perth. So you had, I remember seeing your vehicle driving past us on the freeway, and we are so far from each other. Like, how long did it take you to drive here?
Hour and a half.
Yeah.
It's like Bunbury.
Yeah, you are. I'm about as far south as you would consider Perth. And further south is now Mandurah, which is like a different place.
Yeah.
And you're kind of as far northeast. And I'm like, the ocean is right there.
Yeah,
so I'm as far southwest. Yeah. And you're about as far northeast as it possibly gets. But you were doing a lot of kind of like fast food chains, and you would do everything in a large area and things like that.
Yeah, because you're doing a chain of things, you kind of can't just say, oh, that's kind of outside of our area. You kind of was doing a chain of hotels, and there was 30 hotels. So there, like from north way down Dunsborough and Bustleton. So we would be going down there, and then the same with McDonald's chains as well. So one franchisee might own like 4 different McDonald's stores. So if you're doing one, you kind of need to do all of them. So
what is, I don't know if you want to say this number, or if you even know off the top of your head, what's the most work you've done in a week, dollar-wise? Do you know?
No, I don't really know. All I know is that if it's I don't know, it'd be quite a few thousand, but yeah.
Well, I'm setting the scene because I think a lot of people will look at that and they go, oh, that kind of is a business that I want to have.
Yeah.
And I know that you're wanting to kind of get back to where that was.
Yeah.
Did you say 4 years in the office?
Yeah. 5, yeah.
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 Don't sound so excited about it.
No, it was good. It was a good experience. Well, I did it because it got to the point where basically my husband was doing something which was growing. And it was either go with my business that was growing or leave that to help my husband and spend more time together. So, which is what I did. So basically became his personal assistant. So
which he needed,
but I had no experience in, and so it was great.
Wasn't necessarily your passion at the time, but I mean, to do it for 5 years, it mustn't have been horrible.
No, I mean, I did that, and then also like he ran for election, so I ran an election campaign. He does lots of speaking, so we did, like, I was organising speaking tours through New Zealand and all that kind of thing. And then doing the Shalom work side of it as well. So yeah.
Well, then this is how we met then. So obviously it's not that we were both in the industry, and we're on the other side of the.
Yeah.
We may as well be in different states, right? But the story here, and this is what we talked about, real life stuff, is your husband is one of the most infamous people when it comes to drug rehab, drug and alcohol kind of, what would you call it? Rehab kind of has a bit of a stigma, but even just like trying to turn your life around.
Yeah.
And there's a drug rehab here called Shalom House, which I volunteered at for many years. My wife worked at. And that's how we met. And I had been, in my younger years, I'd never struggled with drug or alcohol ever, but I was involved in a church that had a youth group, and then there was lots of kids in there, and I ended up hiring people who from that socio-economic group were struggling with drug and alcohol. And at the end of the day, as someone who was clueless about the whole world, I didn't know what to do to help these people, but I was trying to do what I could.
Yeah.
And obviously, a lot of conversations come back to Shalom because that was this, at the time, rapidly growing rehab, and a lot of crazy word of mouth of people. I ended up going there to basically sing songs and look pretty.
Yep.
And I only did one of those things well. It wasn't the songs. No.
No, you were great. You're a great worship leader.
But then Carrie got involved in the work, and it was kind of the coolest. I reckon it was one of the coolest things we could have done at the time. I don't think we could do it now with the kids and the stage of life we're at, but we were in our mid to late 20s at that stage, had all the free time in the world. I was working for myself, so I could say yes, no, because I would drive from literally Port Kennedy, this suburb, to on Tuesday afternoons and things like that. And, like crazy drive time and all sorts of stuff. But it was a great time. It was one of the best times of my life because it was a proper season where you're not focused on yourself and focused on how am I going to make more money for myself, or what am I going to do that's going to make my own life better.
Yep.
And surprisingly, that makes your life better.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, we met in that scenario. So there's a whole backstory for that, because when Pete tells his testimony, Pete's your husband, people go, what the heck, right? There's drugs, guns, SWAT team coming in at night and arresting you guys, and oh man, years of addiction and prison and this and that, and you were there for all of that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you look at Pete and you go, yep, I can see it. You just look, yeah, no, I can see.
Story.
I can see that he's not a normal. But you look at the man, and you go, what? And people go, are you sure? Is this the same lady that was there that whole time? So anyways, I'm telling a bit of a story. Is there anything else that I'm missing in that?
No, pretty much. I grew up really in a really stable, normal home on a farm, but I guess it was just the whole textbook good girl meets wild boy kind of thing. So when I met Peter, I was studying horticulture, so I did my Cert 3 and everything. So I guess I was what you would call a functioning addict. Still working, still studying. But then, drugs always take a hold eventually. And, our life went off track. And, like I say, there was a lot of getting raided. There was nights in lockup, mugshots. Yeah, all that kind of thing that went on for probably 5-6 years.
And then how did that feel for you being in that world? Because you were like you said, you were the well-behaved. You didn't come from that life.
Yeah.
Did you feel a lot of shame being involved in that? A lot of embarrassment?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And back then it wasn't like now where there's a lot of support. I feel like there's more support for people that do find themselves in that position.
Less judgment,
more more places that are available, or people that you can talk to, and it's more talked about. But back then it was either you are in that circle where we were in with the drugs, or you're not. And to try and talk to someone that's not in that circle, they wouldn't have a clue. Yeah.
I remember I would go to this, there's a guy who worked for me it was probably about 15, 16, and he would work for me in the school holidays, right?
Yeah. And
then what ended up happening was he just wasn't going to school. And then I went and chatted with the school, and it was one of those, the schools that are designed for people with those kinds of problems, right? Yeah. Like behavioral issues and stuff. When he was 17, I was like, let's be honest, he's wasting his time here, right? What can we do to get him just come work for me full time? And I thought that this was a great idea. Come work for me, because he was a great worker.
Yep.
Right? Great kid when he was around me. Right? Good influence, essentially. Work hard. I remember this one time when I reckon he was about 15. And I reckon it was probably the same temperature as today, 35, 34, something like that. And there was a lady who had a lot of fleabane in her backyard, right? Tall, spindly weeds, for those who don't know. So they're good to pull out if you got some gloves on.
Yeah, they really,
And I had to go do a different job. and I was paying him at the time, it might have been 17, 18 bucks an hour. And this lady had no money. And I was like, this is back before we were doing high-end stuff,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
And I said to him, I said, his name is Jaden. It's like, Jaden, go pull out all these weeds. I'm going to charge it 20 bucks,
Mhm.
right? I'm going to go do a job, come back.
Yep.
If you've done this section, right, I'll give you a free mother, the energy drink,
Yeah.
right? I was going to get him anyway.
Yeah.
My plan was I'm going to the servo to
Yeah,
get a
get
cold
you.
drink. I may as well get him one anyway. So, anyways, I asked him to about a third of this lawn. So it's probably about 40 square meters or something
Mhm.
from memory in the back. I came back and he'd done 2/3 of the lawn.
Wow.
And I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So I gave him the mother and he was just so chuffed that he had the mother.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's so funny because he's not this bad attitude kid who drags his feet and he doesn't want to work and all that sort of stuff. So I saw there was some potential in this kid. Hired him, and just to be frank, his mother was an issue.
Yeah.
The family was an issue. Both of his brothers were serving long prison sentences, 8 and 10 years, right? And you don't get those prison sentences for light things, you know?
Shoplifting.
Or just, I don't know, being drunk in public. Like, so there's a real bad influence at home, and full-time work, just the kid didn't have the capacity and the upbringing to even do full-time work.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the right thing to do, and it was a better than nothing thing to do. It was worth trying. But that was part of the thing that got me to realize it's like, you can listen to as many podcasts on drugs and alcohol and listen to audiobooks and whatever, lectures or sermons or whatever it is. You know nothing until you're actually around people who've been in that world.
Yeah.
And I still feel like I know nothing.
Yeah.
Right. I think we were at Shalom for 4 years, something like that, right?
Mhm.
And going to Shalom was so fascinating because it was such a weird and wonderful and amazing and challenging. It was all the extremes at the same time. People who went from, like, I remember, I won't name anybody, but you would definitely know this person. Someone used to work in the office. Same birthday as Carrie, if you remember.
Yeah.
But we went out for, this guy was crazy drug addiction story and all that sort of stuff. A lot of violence, a lot of bad stuff happening. And we went to Nando's with him one day, and this is when he was stage 3, stage 4 in the program, and had Uno. Oh, do you want to play Uno? Yeah, I'll play some Uno. And then we deal it all out. He's like, how do you play? I was like, what do you mean? It's like, you've never played Uno? It's like, no one had ever invested in this guy ever.
Yeah.
But here he is being a leader at Shalom, helping people.
Mhm.
He's married now, doing well. They got a kid, like things like that. Just seeing that story and where he was from. He was trying to kill people and people were trying to kill him, and the addiction was insane and crazy stories like that. So here you are. You've gone from, backtrack a little bit. You've gone from this, I guess, a normal family with a fairly normal upbringing. You're studying horticulture, and then you get thrust into this world.
Yep.
I guess there were some choices that you made yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of shame, a lot of all that sort of stuff. I don't want to spend too much time on that. What was it like then turning your life around and then being a part of helping other people turn their life around?
Oh, amazing. Because, it got to the point where Peter was suffering psychosis and paranoia, and he'd be up trees or in people's roofs. And at that time, it was kind of when the effects of speed back then, it's kind of meth now, but when people were starting to talk about what the side effects were, because it hadn't been around for that long. And it was like, oh, it's permanent. There's so many people in Greylands,
There's a psych.
Like, it's permanent. Like, once you get psychosis, that's it. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is our life forever. Like, a husband who the only way I saw us getting out of, where I thought Peter was going to end up was either in Greylands forever,
Permanently.
in jail, or dead, really, because he was just always out, just up trees, up roofs, just feeling like people were following him, and just very unstable. And so I was really just resolved myself that this is our life. And yeah, it wasn't what I had pictured my life to look like, that's for sure.
You told me that you had raids at your house.
Mm-hmm.
What were they like?
Pretty scary. Most of them were for fraud. So there's kind of like different levels. There was, when Peter was in the fraud, it was some detectives that would come through. That wasn't so bad. There was one where they suspected that we had explosives in our house, and so that was a TRG. So they came through, just knocked the door down. That was like on the ground. I just got out of the shower, had a little baby, and yeah, it's just like on the ground and they had all like shotguns and everything like that. So
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Is that your rock bottom moment?
Yes. Yeah.
That
was probably where it was like, oh my gosh, like,
what are we doing?
Yeah.
I wonder how many people. So a lot of the people that we had at Shalom.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people came out and worked with me. Nowhere near as many as would have worked with you, obviously, clearly. But I think if you include people who just came out for a day or two or something like that, there might have been 10.
Mm-hmm.
When they're on you got no idea when they're on the tools.
Mm.
I remember we were doing a mulching job, big mulching job at one of the schools that we used to work at. And yeah, anyways, there's just got all these guys working. It was sort of half Shalom guys and half my normal employees.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to tell from a distance who was who.
No.
And I think there's a lot of people who might be listening to this more people. Like, if you're still in the podcast now, someone's interested, right? Yeah. I know this is not going to be the most popular episode we've ever done in the world. But I think your stories, whilst it's extreme, there's a flavor and a certain aspect of it that is resonating with people.
Yep.
Where there's stuff in my past that I'm not proud of.
Yep.
That I really need to get help with. And no one talks about this.
Yeah.
And no one likes to talk about, what's my rock bottom moment?
Mm-hmm.
And we want to pretend that we all had nice lives, that we don't need to forgive anybody. We don't need to apologize to anybody. We don't need to change anything. So I feel like there was, you're certainly not alone.
Yeah.
Now, that's your rock bottom moment. When did things start changing and getting better?
Yep.
And this is gonna, you can't tell this story without talking about God at some sense.
No.
And there's gonna be people who are like, turn it off. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah.
Because I'm not interested in manipulating a story to make somebody, a random person on the internet listening, more comfortable with it.
Yeah, for sure.
But you tell me what really happened and where you went from you and your husband, absolute rock bottom. I should tell some stuff. I will do an intro and I will give a bit more stuff, but Pete was selling thousands of dollars of drugs a week, right? Do you remember? I can't remember how much.
Yes.
He said it 50 times.
16 ounces. Yeah, a week.
I don't even know what that means.
Like a very big dealer. And it was at that time, where I was thinking that the only way this is going to end is, either Greylands, death, jail. And then just some really weird stuff started happening with Peter. So I'm on the outside looking into the way he's acting. It was basically, I couldn't schedule in appointments, we had 2 kids at that time. It was all about, where is he now? What's he doing? Friends would ring saying, he's gone here, he's gone there. And, I'd get calls saying that he's Police have picked him up, like it was just constant. So then some weird stuff started happening where he was feeling like paranoia, but at the same time, feeling like there was something happening inside of him, which he was trying to express, but I was just thinking it was also the psychosis and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he kind of, God just came in and he had a plan for him. And I didn't realize that it was changing, but I just thought it was still the psychosis until one day when he just actually, I guess he was at his rock bottom and just was weeping and crying and apologizing because he was doing a lot of stuff behind my back as well, like other women and stuff like that, which I kind of knew, but, you kind of just push it under the table because there's bigger things to deal with. And then
Which is crazy that you would say that, because for most people, that's the biggest thing you'd ever have to deal with.
I know. But there was bigger stuff than that. So at the time, that was just kind of like, I'm just going to put that aside because right now I can't deal with that as well as everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But he just was breaking down, crying, apologizing for all this stuff and just bringing all this truth up. And then he's like, I've got to get out of here. So we moved to a hotel in Wanneroo, which is north, to get away from everyone. And he just started from there changing. He had to actually, like, he didn't want anything to do with anybody. And it was just really humble. Like because at the time before he was on steroids as well. So he was very, very arrogant, very kind of verbally abusive. But he was just a broken, humble, remorseful person that was just like, wow.
Where did this come from? What new drugs is he on?
Yeah, exactly.
More of that one, please.
Okay, this is psychosis, but just a different kind of psychosis. But I'm just going to go with this one because this is okay. Like I can see the man that I met and fell in love with. I could see that back, and then it was like we need to go to church, and then because he had a dream from God that he woke up and like we've got to go to church, and then he had to go back to prison because he had lots of charges. But when he came out of prison, he was like, "No, I've got to go to Bible college."
I love the way you say it. We got to go to church, but he went to prison.
Yeah. Well, even when we went to court, I had to go to court as well because I was on charges for firearms and things. And then, the prosecutor could see straight away that there was something different.
Yep.
So between the prosecutor and the defense, our defense and the judge kind of just gave us the minimum, which was still a prison term, but it was a minimum. And then, but while he was in prison, he was looking at all Bible colleges and everything. And then I still hadn't probably changed. Like I still wasn't sure about who God was or anything like that. But then just when he came back out and just seeing the changes in him and just the way not just changes in him, but the way things were falling into place. Like we found my mum and dad's unit came up was available in Como, which is right near where he was going to Bible college at Riverview. And just our life was changing, and bit by bit, like we were getting in front, like getting my driver's license back. Our kids were going to the same school because our oldest son went to like 4 schools in year 1.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was just a lot of moving when we were on the drugs. Got him stable. So it was like, and he hadn't touched drugs, and like ever since I met him, he was on drugs. Like we moved all around Australia like 4 times trying to get away from drugs. Obviously, they're everywhere.
Well, the problem's in person.
Exactly. Wherever he went, he went. It was
he was still there. Yeah,
and
he's out of Perth,
like,
but
you'd
Pete's
move
still
somewhere,
there.
and it would be fine for maybe a week or 2 because he would just like hide, and then he'd go out. And I guess he just had that persona. Or maybe he did go and chase it. I don't know. But he would always say, "Oh, just someone came up to me randomly and offered me."
It happens to me all the time. Every time I get a hungry Jacks,
And so then it was, he hadn't touched anything. And so it was probably 6 months after he got out of jail that I was kind of like, I think, there must be a God because, I
This is
can't
different.
explain it any other way. Yeah.
You guys were at the church.
Yeah.
What I know of the story is just being in a church, it's a big church.
Yeah.
And he gets a reputation of being the guy who was a former drug addict, which means everybody who comes to the church who is a current drug addict, they're like, go talk to Pete. Because, and I'm fast forwarding a bit, but your lives did turn around. This is when business started doing well. You started working together.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is, well, you tell me what it was like in that season.
Yeah, it was like night and day. This was our life and this is our life now. Like, it was complete opposite. Like, it was like a 360. And then
Pete was working with you in the business for a while.
Yeah, so he was studying at Bible college full time. So I was basically doing some gardening around where we were living. Where we're living is quite upper class. So we were doing some nice gardens. And when he wasn't at college, we would go and do like lawns together. And finally we got enough deposit. We got some money from my mum and dad and then bought a house, got a dog. And it was just like
I love how it's like him sleeping with other women behind your back. That wasn't a big deal. But getting a dog.
Yeah, getting a dog.
That's the world we were in.
Oh my gosh, we are a normal family. We got mum and dad, 2 kids and a dog. And it was like
a stable job.
Dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then at the church you're at, people start going, so somebody comes to church and they've got a drug issue.
Yeah.
It's just natural to go, well, Pete's at this church. He had a drug issue.
Yeah.
They're now a normal family with a functioning business and a dog.
Yeah.
You know, because that's the standard of success now. I didn't
totally.
realize, but now I know. And then you have one guy. Were they at your house at that stage? They move in with you, or how did this whole Shalom thing start?
Oh, okay. So
because we're fast forwarding years. This isn't like a 6-month turnaround.
Yeah. So Peter was doing he finished Bible college. And then he started going up to one of the private prisons, Acacia prisons, which is private prison. He was up there like.
Is that where like your snobby kids go?
Yeah, private school.
Yeah, exactly.
Private prison.
Public school versus private school. If you went to public school, you go to public prison.
So he was up there like, well, it just meant that he could get in there. Like the public prisons, it's very hard to get in, but this private, his brother was actually one of the prison guards there at the time.
Right.
Because it was only pretty newly opened. So he was up there 2-3 days a week. And from there, he could see guys, they're in prison. They're like, oh, when I get out, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to change my life. And then they get out and like 3 months later, they'd be back in. He's just like, what is going on? So he realized, then the prison shut the door on him because they brought in the thing that anyone that's been incarcerated before can't go and talk to the people that are incarcerated. Like, yeah.
Which is kind of like,
it's ridiculous.
Counterproductive, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, obviously there'll be some people who might want to manipulate that. But if you've been like, how many people who have gone to Shalom and they've turned their life around on drugs go, the number one thing I now want to do is to help other people who were where I was.
Yeah.
Oh, no. We don't want anybody with a
people
past.
That have done the degrees and things like that.
Exactly. We want people like Luke, who doesn't know a single thing about anything, but he read a book once. He's going to help. Yeah, exactly.
And so they shut the door on him. So then he was, what now? But he realized that because he went and was helping out a lot of the other rehabs around Perth, but then he realized that he thought if he gets a house and then just has a few guys in the house and just helps them do life. So that's what we did. We bought a house in Middle Swan, had like 4 guys in there. Then he realized, actually we need to not have any TV or any newspapers and things. Just need to solely just concentrate on their recovery and and God and listening to good music and just having good stuff
Good
go into you.
influences, yeah.
And then he realized that you actually need rules. Okay, so and then stages like, okay, you're in here for us 4 weeks. There's no contact with anyone, and then no TV or things like that. And then he realized before he knew it that he kind of had a rehab.
Yeah, so
he never
it is
intended.
incredibly organic.
Yeah, he never intended to have a rehab.
It's like, I'm a guy who used to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Let me try and help a couple of people I know naturally who are struggling.
Yes.
And then through that process, helping them ends up becoming a bit more, I guess, formulaic or systematic.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden people are like, oh, you should go see this guy.
Yeah.
And then 2 becomes 4 and 4 becomes 10.
Yeah.
And then by the time we're getting involved, there's 80 people.
Yeah.
Right?
So it started in 2012. So
we got involved 2016, 17.
Yeah. So it was kind of like pretty like
maybe
4,
even earlier.
And then 8, and then there was another house. So then it got to 16. And then it was to like 30, and then it just jumped from when it got to 30, it just was 80, and then it just from 80 it was 120, and then 120 was at one stage there was like 160 guys.
We were there when it went from 80 to 130-ish.
Yeah.
And it was always struggling around that 130, like there's not enough people helping out that you couldn't handle too much more.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is it's not a prison. You can leave whenever you want.
Yeah.
And people do leave.
Yes.
And then they come back.
Yes.
And then they leave again.
Uh-huh.
And then they come back again.
Uh-huh.
And it's just like, mate,
5 times later, like
6 times later.
the penny finally drops.
Yeah.
Some take a bit longer.
And some, whatever. You're always welcome, I guess. But it's a crazy, like I said before, like it's one of the weirdest things for people like me who've never done anything like that to be involved in, because it's at the same time as it's like I said before, it's so extreme but it's so fulfilling.
Yeah.
It's exhausting in a sense, but it's also life-giving. It's challenging. It's also like some of the best moments, like the guy we're telling you about before, like being at his wedding.
Yeah.
And he's marrying like a normal chick.
Yeah.
And years later, their marriage is still doing well.
Yeah.
That might have been 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
They got a son, and
so good.
Now I was there when he first started,
and
other people as well. Like, the stories. I remember like hearing stories. A guy telling a testimony. It's like never had a relationship with his kids, and he's at Shalom, and he's I think Peter Hempsel, who's a different Peter, who's he gets him up and he's like, oh, you had something good happen this week, didn't you? And so he goes and tells the story that his kids, he's never really had any involvement with in his whole life. And they're not that old, but maybe 6, 7.
Yeah.
They go out and he'd build some trust for them after being in the program. And maybe 3 months into the program, his daughter, I believe, called him dad for the first time in his whole life.
Yeah.
I'm getting emotional being like, I don't even have kids at that stage.
Yeah.
But you're like, oh, it's so significant. And then the heartbreak when someone leaves or people die, that's thing that happens as well. Like that's the world.
Yep.
And
well, yeah, no one has died at Shalom, but they'll leave.
Get back on something.
Yeah.
And that is like, man, that was a guy who 3 months ago, and I keep saying guys because when we were there,
it was just guys.
Yeah. When we were finishing up, we started finishing up at the same time, my health went downhill. But when we were finishing up, I think we had just started.
Yep.
There might have been 5 chicks, 10 chicks or something like that.
Yeah. And
then I was like, you got the ladies in now, I'm out. I'm closeted sexist.
Hard.
No. Our time was finished. But so that's why we keep saying guys. But the where was I saying? Oh, like the turnaround stories, and then the heartbreak of. Yeah, I remember hearing. It's actually the anniversary of one of the guys, who I'm talking about, who passed away, and a couple of friends on Facebook were posting stuff last week, and it's like, man, it's just heartbreaking when that happens, but that happens.
Yeah, it does happen.
And
Yep.
that's life. I know there's people listening right now who have had family members, friends pass away from drug, alcohol, things like that.
You can only help the people that you can help. And I think that's, otherwise it can take you out. Or, Peter knows that now, that he's kind of got close to a few people and then they leave and then or die. So he knows how to help someone, but when they leave, it's out of his hands. So he just focuses on those that are in the program.
What's some of the proudest moments you've had being involved in something like, not necessarily like even just the formal side of the program, if you wanted to call that, just being involved with people's lives? Like, like I'm talking about a wedding or something like that.
And there's one guy in particular who was working with me in the business that I had before. And he was in and out of the program, and then he kind of was hooked on codeine and just prescription drugs, more prescription drugs than illegal drugs. And so he would just keep going backwards, and then he'd get back on track. But he recently bought a business, and now he's married, and he's like the guy you're talking about. His wife is just gorgeous, and now they've got a baby. He's in his late 30s, but he's finally, that's what he wanted. He just wanted a wife and to have a baby, and to be able to see that is amazing. The other thing is just seeing marriages repaired.
Yep.
Like, you have the guy come in, and then the wife's like, he's been cheating on her and things like that, because that's just the world that you live in. And then, that world of drugs and everything. And she's like, no, don't want anything to do. I'm gone. But then they might see a couple of photos on Facebook, and then they'll come in for like a reconciliation where the guy kind of is saying sorry for all the things that they've done. And there's a lot of things that they'll say sorry for that she knows that they did, but they denied at the time. And then they'll come out and they're completely truthful. They have to be, because
that's part of the program.
That's part of it. And then just from there, just a slow wooing, I guess. And and
it's not, we should say as well that you're not doing that as a manipulative tactic to get back into a relationship.
Oh no,
it's like, I'm being open and honest. This is my past. And if you never want to be a part of my life again, that's fine. But I've cleaned the slate there. And then when same to your story, because people will be like, oh yeah, you've done 2 weeks of drugs before. I've seen this happen. But now 6 months goes by, and it's like, oh, this is the guy I originally. And then when you got kids and stuff, and I'm thinking a couple down here, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And fantastic story like that, And then they ended up becoming this model couple who, I haven't seen them in a while, but when somebody else passed away and left a child behind, they adopted or looked at, I don't know if it's official, but they looked after the child.
No, it's official,
And it was like this whole, like, to go from where they were at that stage when they came in, their marriage is dead.
She'd gone over to the other side of Australia.
4 kids or so, 3 kids or
3 kids at the time.
And they've gone. We're not even talking with Dad anymore.
No.
Come back. Then Dad goes to prison for a bit. And anyway, comes back, keeps going the program, keeps doing well. And then, ends up being a leader and stuff. And that transformation is stuff that, again.
And it's just about, and I guess for the women, it's hard to, there's still a lot of hurt there, obviously, and things like that. So there's a whole team that, it's not like, oh, the guy says sorry, so I've got to forgive. There's a whole team that come alongside, her, and
we're like shortening a 1.5 year long process into a sentence for some people.
Get over
it. Ignore all the drugs and the prostitutes and every lie that I ever told you.
You
And
said sorry.
yeah, exactly. Get over it. Come on. No, it's more than that, but it's just, I guess the picture we're painting is that it's actually possible for people to do that.
And it's generational. Like, then you see their kids see their mum and dad together, working through these issues. Because, I mean, no marriage is, like, perfect.
Except for mine.
There's always
going to embarrass me on my own podcast, Amanda.
There's always going to be issues. But that's part of it. Like, kids seeing mum and dad work things out. I mean, I think of us, like, if we had separated, gosh, what our life would look like, it would be like completely different. Our kids' lives would be completely different. Our kids have just had, besides the first 6-7 years of their life, a really good, well, as best we could.
But they're doing, yeah. But it's like, not that I've met all your children, but I don't have close relationships. But I'm Facebook friends with a couple of them.
Yeah.
And things are going well.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like, not that I know everything, but yeah, again, you're not looking back and going, oh, this is obviously the child of somebody who used to sell. I don't know, how much is 16 ounces worth? And why ounces? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Bloody American. I was talking to last night. I told you this beforehand, but people won't know this. I went on the Jim's podcast, and I was talking to Joel, and apparently I'm the first non-person.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, that's interesting. I said some nice things about Jim, so maybe that's how you get in. But we were talking about the relational benefit to kids and marriages and stuff of running a successful small business.
Mm-hmm.
And I was making the argument that charging correctly frees you up to do the things that people see it as being selfish, like be more considerate of the client. And it's like, no, my priority is my wife and my kids, not the client's bank account, you know. But I talked about there on there, which is something I don't think I've talked about before, but marriage counseling is something that I actually got before I even got married.
Yeah.
I'll be married for 9 years in April. It's middle of February now, so not long, right? Month and a half. And I got married very young. My parents didn't have a successful marriage. And I was off the mindset where I was like, this is a huge thing. And I don't know how to do marriage. So I'm going to go get some marriage counseling. And the same kind of things when I was at Shalom, the same kind of core principles that were being taught, communication, like how to, all sorts of stuff. We ended up getting counseling with the counselors at Shalom.
Yeah.
And we weren't on drugs or anything like that.
Yeah.
But there's a level of help that everybody needs at some stage. But again, having a successful small business, because what I was arguing for with on the Jim's podcast, a very brief comment, but I was basically saying, look, when you work for somebody and you want to go get some therapy of some kind, and you go, oh, can I have some time off work? It's like, oh, why do you need some time off work? Oh, man. How do I explain this?
Yeah.
But you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You call up a client and say, hey, look, I've had to, next services, in the week, and I've had to move that around or do it on the next day. Oh, no worries. That's fine. And you can go and do that kind of stuff. And so some people might be listening to this going, the full Shalom thing may not be what I need, but there's something resonating where they go, yeah, maybe I need some help.
Yeah.
Maybe a full rehab's not where I'm at.
No.
And if it's not where
it's not for everyone. No, definitely.
But I think that's one of the things about business that allows that.
Oh, the whole flexibility is so important.
So you've got now, so where are we now? You're working, still focusing on commercial. What's the business name?
Commercial care.
Yeah, definitely not residential. Name that. Commercial care, and you're doing mostly horticulture, still not too much lawn care?
Not too much lawn care. No, it's mainly hotels, restaurants, things like that. So a lot of vertical gardens, hanging baskets, pot plants, courtyards. There is lawn. We do lawns, but there's nowhere really that we just go and do a lawn. Like,
Well,
it's
that's
always
the
lawn
that's the
is just
sites
like,
that you're doing,
yeah,
and not. Yeah, it's not like a shop front that just happens to have a lawn there.
yeah,
It's more like a full
yeah,
courtyard,
yeah,
things like that.
yeah.
So, but you're also employing some people who have either graduated or have gone through the program still. So that's still part. So even though you're not involved with that side, that's what I used to do.
Yep.
That's some of the most fun stuff I've done as well.
Yep.
Because there's guys who have worked for me. I was talking about some of them beforehand, and they weren't the easiest people to have as employees. They weren't the hardest either. I've definitely had worse, right? Like, actually, it's funny. I'll tell you a story. I was sitting right where you are on this couch, and it was the end of the day, and somebody's wife who used to work for me came in. She's in tears.
Yeah.
I was like, "What are you doing here?" Like, and she goes, "Did you give so and so any cash?" I'm like, no, I didn't give them any cash. Long story short, we were not accepting cash at that stage. We don't accept cash for these kinds of reasons. But we had a new couple, older couple, sorry, and the old lady had given cash as payment, and this guy took it as what's the word I'm looking for? He had basically just stolen it, pretended he didn't receive it, and then went and bought alcohol.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, but he'd been a functioning alcoholic, and whenever he was driving on his own or he's out on his own, he was drinking. And my 2IC had sent some stuff. I think he had kind of didn't have enough evidence to point any fingers.
Yep.
So we have a drug test in the bottom of that drawer right there. Yeah. Because we also had somebody else who, we suspected some drug stuff, and then the day after payday, they didn't rock up.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm 90% sure of this. And I sent them a message, and I said, look, I'm just going to be frank with you. You know, I'm thinking this. So if you come into work tomorrow, we're doing a drug test.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he had COVID the next day.
Oh, no. How convenient.
Exactly. And then, anyways, he never came back.
Yeah.
But look, whatever. So I've had all those stories before, and believe it or not, it's actually the ex-rehabs. They're way better than that. But anyways, no, the guys who I had, fantastic guys, but the problem was that the gardening wasn't their passion. It wasn't the industry they ever wanted to grow into.
They're just getting paid.
But it's amazing to be a part of that next step, because a lot of them, they come out of rehab and they need something on their resume.
Yeah, and it's just that whole re-socialization thing. Like, so they're obviously on drugs or alcohol or something. And some guys are in there, or ladies in there, because of trauma, prescription drugs, anger, can be anxiety, like gaming addiction. So it's not just drugs and alcohol. It can be any life controlling issue. But so they're in the program for like 6 months. And then when they get to stage 2, they've got 2 days a week paid. Well, they've got the option of doing 2 days a week paid work with an employer that's kind of on the same page, like you would be, like as the program, so we can complement each other. So yeah, when they come out, it is really great, because they're like, oh wow, but it's a big responsibility for us as well, because especially with doing restaurants and hotels and things, you've got to really help them guard their heart. But at the same time, you can't wrap them in cotton wool, because they're going to come out and see cigarette, because there's no smoking at Shalom either. So for a lot of them, cigarettes is the biggest thing to
restart. Yeah, you start going down that path again.
Yeah.
It's a bit like me with KFC, you know what I mean? Like,
there's triggers.
Don't drive past it. Just don't even start,
So it's a matter of just keeping an eye on them. For one guy that I've got at the moment, meth was his claw. And so when we're doing some gardens, he might find an empty sachet bag. And so straight away he knows he can call me, and because I'm not far away, and he's like, look, can you just grab that? Because it's a trigger point for me. But he sticks with it, and he's doing really well, that particular guy. So he's getting better and better.
It's very special to be a part of something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm trying to say this. There's some people out there who are kind of more in the ballpark of, I guess, where you were, or the world that you were in before you met Peter, and my kind of world, where it's like just the circles. Because I went to a private school, so I'd go to a private prison as well,
Okay.
But I went to a small, very Christian sort of.
Yeah.
That stuff didn't really happen.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bit sheltered.
Yeah.
And then people go, "How do I help?" Now,
Yeah.
don't rehab someone because you don't know what you're doing. You
Yeah,
really don't
yeah.
know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But there might be people who have come out of rehab, wherever they are around the country.
Yeah.
And you might look at someone like that and go, on paper, or I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
But yes, they're probably more work, more management, maybe a bit of what's the word I'm looking for? This common sense isn't the right thing, but it's kind of like that. There's a common work ethic sense of being in a team like that some people never really developed, and they have to learn that, and they will learn that with you. Maybe you would have learned that in school or sports teams, and they never had that upbringing. So you might have to teach them that kind of skill, and maybe after 2 years they move on to something different.
Yep.
But you still get this amazing, difficult, challenging, but rewarding part of your life to go, I was a part of that person going from completely, I was the last stage of that person going from complete drug addict to functioning member of society.
Absolutely.
The last relay leg.
So appreciative that someone's giving them a chance. So, which is great. And because I've been in that program, there's no swearing or anything at Shalomina. So they don't swear, or there's no cigarettes or anything. So, I mean, after that initial helping them to re-socialize, I said to one of the guys the other day, I'm like, you look and act so normal. And he was like, really? Do you think so? I'm like, yeah, you are completely normal.
That's such a compliment.
And he really did take it as a compliment, because he's like, are you sure? Because I don't always feel normal. I'm like, nah, you project that you are completely normal.
So where are you going now with business? You're 9 months in?
Yeah, about 9 months in, yeah.
You've grown pretty fast by the sounds of it, because you've got 1 or 2 people with you most days still. I guess that's the nature of this kind of work that you're doing, because you're not taking on a $50 lawn that gets done once a month.
No.
You're taking on, I don't know, like you said, the bigger stuff.
Yeah. So just focusing on the bigger jobs, which is good, because that's what I like to do, like big scale kind of jobs. So 3 people. Yeah, most days there's 3 of us. So and we're at a job for most of the day. Might do 2 jobs in a day, but most times it's 1 job.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, no travel time.
No travel.
You don't have to worry about that.
No.
Makes things a lot simpler. And also, you don't have massive bits of equipment or anything.
No.
So, yeah, it is.
I hear you talk about cylinder mowers, but yeah, we just got a rotary mower, a couple of rotary mowers.
I'll forgive you.
Couple of whippersnippers. We've got Adam Edger.
Did you bring it?
Yes, you have to try it.
That's it.
But majority of it is labour. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you do much fertilization, pest control, things like that?
Yeah, I do. A lot of the indoor plants and things like that. Always got mealybug or scale and things like that. I
actually was up the ladder on that not mother of pearl, chain of hearts. Where did mother of pearl come from? Chain of hearts, and there's some white residue left over, and I was like, I need to inspect this more, but I also want to turn a blind eye to it. So I got so many other things I need to do. If it doesn't spread, I'm not worried.
Yeah, so just keeping on top of all that, and then I do a lot of wetting agent, like, I don't know.
Yep. Oh, in this weather.
Yeah, in this weather.
Goodness.
Wetting agents. We do retic, and
I'll tell you about the one up there. I think it's called Tricure, which you can get at the lawn shed. But that's been a game changer for me, because this is specifically for lawns. Every other wetting agent, you need to water in.
Yeah.
This one, you don't need to water in.
Wow.
Which I'm like, man, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of the products that we mix with our wetting agents, fertilizers and things like that specifically, they want to be left on the leaf for a few hours.
Yep.
And so all of a sudden we've gone, we can, like say the sprinklers are coming on tomorrow morning, I can just apply and then leave.
Yeah.
I don't need to apply and then water
it
in.
in.
And then I'm like, oh man. So that's been a game. I've only been using it since maybe December.
Okay.
And I wish I had found that years ago.
Yep.
Because the time savings on.
Yeah.
But in this weather as well, it's kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if, I remember I had this is on my own, luckily. There was a 35-degree day and I was working at home and I just wanted to get out and I had some dry patches. I put some wetting agent down and just in the patches. So I was like, oh, I don't need to
do the whole thing.
Turn the whole system on. So I got one of those butterfly sprinklers, stuck it in, and then did 5 minutes and then moved across in 5 minutes. The second area was burnt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the next day, it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so I should have known better. But things like that. I guess actually you're probably doing like a soil application if you're doing a lot of like pot plants and things like that. So you wouldn't be getting on leaves anyway.
No, yeah, mainly it's just straight into the soil and then liquid fertilizers over the foliages.
What products are you using?
At the moment, a lot of the Rich Grow stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rich Grow, the wetting agent, the granulars for the lawns and gardens, and then the Rich Grow liquid liquid wetting agents. Bailey's do a really good liquid fertilizer. So I've been using that one as well. Sea Sol.
Yep.
Yeah.
Classics.
Yeah.
Do you nerd out over that sort of stuff, or you just
not really?
So I used this one and it worked.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to keep using it.
Yeah.
I feel like I used to be worse, but I'd want to try everything.
Yeah.
And then I'd do something on my lawn,
mm-hmm.
and then I've still got heaps of it left, but I wanted to buy another thing and try that on my lawn. And then you look at it and you're comparing photos.
Yeah.
Which one looks better?
Yeah.
And you look at them and it's like just the lighting of the day or whatever.
Yeah.
You really can't tell a difference. But you're like, I don't know. This one's.
I'd like to do a lot more experimenting with different products. So hopefully, maybe in spring I'll start doing that more on our home lawns and things. But
it's also one of those things where it's like you get to the end of the day and you're gardening and you're like, I can't be stuffed.
Well, especially
doing more
at the
gardening.
moment, it's just been ridiculously hot, especially out where we are. It's
only 33 now.
I know.
It's gone down 3 degrees since we started.
45-degree days for as long as I can remember. Sorry, it's just.
How many days in a row of 40 did we have? It's cooler here than it is where you are.
Yeah.
Because we're so close to the ocean.
Yeah.
I think it's about 4 degrees cooler on average.
Yeah.
But what was the hottest day you had recently? Because we got at 43. That was the worst we got.
Yeah, we got to 45.9.
But that's probably 3 degrees.
Yeah.
So probably that day we were 43.
Yeah.
But then we had.
I think it was that 3 days in a row.
Yeah, I think we had 38, 41, 43. So you must have had 42, 44, 45 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it was 24 the day before either.
No.
It was
it was
35, 37, 36, 40 something.
I can't remember yesterday was nice, but
yesterday
we only got to 35.
Exactly. And I'm telling you,
beautiful.
Back to this podcast I was with Joel, I started recording at 7 o'clock at night and it was 31 because I got a thermometer here. And I was like, this is so nice.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like waiting for this thing to set up. And I was thinking what temperature is it? And I was like 31. I was like, that's crazy. If this was September and you used to winter, and it's 31, you're like, gee, it's still 31.
You're stinking.
Man. And it was 28 at the end of that podcast at 9:30 at night or something.
Yeah.
So look, crazy weather.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried humic acid much?
No.
Yeah, give that one a crack.
Okay.
I was watching some videos on that today. A lot of brands are now mixing that in. I know Bally's are mixing that in with some of their products.
Yeah.
But there's a video that someone did on some tomatoes, and they did comparisons side by side with just root growth, and it was maybe just 2.5 times.
Wow.
Just from humic acid on the
huge.
root growth. And I was like, yeah, we use it.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've prioritized those kind of tonics would be the word.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that this because we're this wetting agent, a lot of the reason why we don't do a humic is because you kind of we do them, but you got to pick your days. I'm like, hold on, I can put that with my wedding agent now. I can
Yeah,
put my
that's so
fertilizer with my
cool.
wedding agents.
Yeah.
I guess it's a lot of lawn
Because a
stuff.
lot of times it's one or the other, isn't it? Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
And then if you're going to water in and then stay back and do a second application, it gets
Yeah.
so expensive for the
Yeah.
client.
Yeah.
And you're like, this will make a 1% difference. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
I'm changing my mind on that.
Yeah.
But so with your goals with the business, then, are you happy kind of where you're at now, or do you want a world domination? Is there a size where you're like, that's what I want to get to? Because I mean, everyone's getting older as well, so I know that you must be thinking about long term. Do you want to be on the tools long term? Do you want to go back to more of a management thing?
I don't mind being on the tools. Like, yeah, I like that. But I think where I was before, three crews is good. I think anything more than that, and then you're starting to have to go off the tools and be more managing kind of thing.
Yep.
But 3 crews is good. I mean, it's so different now because like the software that's available is so cool. Like, makes it so much easier just to logistically and everything. So yeah, set up a depot would be great. It's just getting the right staff, which
Have you ever thought about doing some sort of design? Would you be interested in doing that for indoor like courtyards and things like that?
Yeah, I do designs. I've done a few designs lately for a landscaper, but my passion is more on the tools.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny how a lot of people want to get off the tools.
Yeah.
But I have heard of several people who've got around that size business who just want to get back on.
Yeah.
And I even found with myself, like when my health got better, I really did miss being on the tools.
Yeah.
And I worked probably a good 6-7 months where I was doing a lot of it because I was enjoying it. And then now I still enjoy it, but my balance is like 1 or 2 days a week is great.
Yeah.
And then the rest I can do this kind of stuff and actually run the business and build for the things that are happening in the background.
I guess being able to, I mean, it takes time to do quotes and things like that. So at the moment it's working on the tools and then doing the quotes after hours and, plant shopping and going to Bunnings and getting all your stuff or your retic stuff. So it would be good to be able to do that during work hours and get a bit more of a balance.
Yep. Well, I don't know how long that was, but I think it was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't as stressful as you thought it would be. I do find it funny. It's like people get nervous, and I told you this before, but it's funny for people on the podcast. Some people I get on, they get nervous about it, and I'm like, mate, you're gonna knock it out of the park.
Yeah, no, it was good.
But okay, so if people want to go, well, where would they find you? Are you on socials?
I am. I'm probably. That's another thing I've got to. I guess it's hard. Like you had I think it's Ashley James, the landscaper. So it is hard. Like I've got all these before photos, but it's hard to put on your afters because they're not a true reflection. So
you got to wait a year.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. Like I've taken some progress ones because we've gone back. You go back regularly. So yeah, but yeah, that's just commercial care.
We've struggled with our after photos this year because of how hot and dry it's been.
Yeah.
And it's not that the lawns aren't doing better. They're doing better, but they're still not Instagrammable yet.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? There's a small dry patch here.
Yeah.
I got a client, it's so frustrating. The neighbor drives on their lawn, right?
No, yeah.
So it's a very narrow street, and this guy reverse parks. So he kind of drives in the lawn and reverse backs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's been doing that for years. And the lawn was dead when we started. And it was getting real good. And then he drove over and broke a sprinkler.
Oh, no.
And in this heat. And then we sent the guy a message and we're like, we've got to put some sort of concrete surrounds or something on it.
Yeah.
And then he's just gone, just redo everything, man. Like we've put so much effort in. We're also heartbroken about it. But that one was getting close to being like, this is a great before and after. We had another one that was the same where it 2 weeks ago, I looked at the after photos, the 2 weeks ago cut. I was like, this is really good.
Yeah.
And then I looked at this week's cut and I'm like, this is hot. like not hot as in like, this is looking sexy. It's
It's
like
like hot. It's hot.
it is baked, And 1 week of cool weather and it's schmick again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not dyed or anything,
I know.
but you can tell it's
It
like
only
the
takes
weather's
a week.
hating it.
Like we do like a large church I was telling you about, and then for some reason we were checking the retic a couple of weeks ago, and then at the end, normally we're on the walkie-talkies, and I'll say, "Yep, off and back to auto" to whoever's on the controller, but for some reason this person didn't put it back to auto, so it was left on off. And so we went back a week later to do some spraying, and I drove around the corner, and it's like straight away it's not just a patch, or it's not just one station, it's the whole everything, and all the gardens, even the plumbago was just like. And she's like,
then you need that wetting agent.
Yeah, then
because then it gets baked and it gets hard, and nothing gets in. Yeah,
water repellent, and then it's like, damn. So yeah.
Well, I had that at school. So on Wednesday last week, I was fixing sprinklers. Now, I really don't think it was me, but there's a chance it was me, right? But
yeah.
What's happened is there's a box right next to the oval, so kids can get it, right?
Yeah.
And it usually has a padlock on it, and someone has taken the padlock away.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I might have fixed it, turned it back on, and then turned it off, and not put it back on auto, or I've put it on auto.
And
someone's. If the box was locked, I would have owned up to it already.
Yeah, it's definitely you. But
I ended up having to then go get my toe behind sprayer and do a full application of kelp and Vitalize and wetting agent, and then daily watering. you know,
try and drench it.
Screw water restrictions. Like this is because it actually, the lawn's really healthy, and that was for those people listening. Those really hot days is when it happened, but it's coming.
Well, how long a time frame was that?
If it was me, it was Wednesday to Monday.
Yeah, I know. This was Thursday to Tuesday.
I'll show you photos because there's patches that are fine.
Yeah.
And then there's patches that are roasted.
Yeah.
Like and
crunchy.
Yeah. There's little bits of life in them still, so they'll come back. It's quite cool. It's like it's probably already 6 feet tall. You know, like, and I was there yesterday. But no, it'll come back. But I guess that's another reason why I'm not so sure if it was me, because I think Wednesday to Monday would have been really bad.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe I'm just what's the word? In denial that it could have been me.
It's a good lesson though, isn't
it? I was pretty grumpy.
It was a really good lesson because it was like, I need to double check.
Yeah.
Before.
But so the other thing that happens, the other thing that makes me suspicious is we actually had a year and a bit ago, we had somebody who was turning it off.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, I wonder if they're back.
Yeah.
But that was definitely not us, because it was like we wouldn't even touch the box.
Yeah.
And then we'd come back and like everything's really dry.
Yeah.
And then we'd look and it wouldn't be dead.
Yeah.
But it'd be like, it's off.
So it wasn't the whole time you were away.
Well, it might have been days, but it wasn't 40 something consistently. So it was like, normal spring week or something like that. It's not going to die.
Yeah.
But you look at it and you just go, this doesn't quite look right.
Yeah.
Something's not right with this, and then you go look and talk, why is the sprinklers off?
Yeah.
And then we ended up changing the controller over. And anyway, I haven't had it done since then. But anyways, thank you for coming on.
No, thank you for asking me.
And so we were talking about your Instagrams. Commercial Care, do you have Instagram?
No.
Facebook?
Yep.
So Commercial Care.
Yep.
Landscaping, and I can't see the rest of your shirt.
Garden maintenance. Jump
on there, people. And Shalom House is a rehab. If any of you are thinking about, obviously you're talking about a friend, clearly,
Oh, yeah.
If you ever got questions about your friend, or if you yourself need some sort of help or support, that's a great option.
Yeah, even if someone just wants to ask a few questions,
Yep.
There's avenues on the website for Shalom House that you can email or ring or, yeah.
And if you've got a McDonald's or a KFC or a hotel or a great pub in the northeastern corridor of Perth and they want some gardening.
Yeah, I'd love to give you a quote.
All right. Well, guys, we'll see you in the next podcast.